Yo, what's going on, guys? It's G Miners here, and in this video I wanted to go over what I think is easily one of the best GM builds to run this season, and in my opinion it's just one of the best slash most well-rounded GM builds that you can run. And what I mean by well-rounded is that it might not be as good as running a bunch of Cenotaph Warlocks and spamming rockets, or it might not be as good as a bunch of Banner of War Titans in GMs where melee builds are super effective, but it works in every single GM without fail, and it allows you to play really fast and get some quick ad clear done if that's what you want, while also still allowing you to play really slow, sit back, and be safe if you're newer to GMs. The main bread and butter of the build is going to be Celestial Nighthawk when paired up with Polaris Lance. I did also want to give a really quick shout out to ATP. I know he uploaded this first. Obviously, a bunch of people have been making build videos with Polaris Lance for the last few seasons, and I did already make a build covering how broken Celestial Nighthawk was this season, but he was the first person to really upload both together in the same build. Obviously, this build is going to be pretty different as I used it in a team setting rather than for solo GMs, but people get really weird about making similar builds, so I did want to give credit where credit is due, and yeah, so make sure to check out his video down below. That being said, using this in GMs was insanely strong, and I say that as somebody who hates using scouts in GMs because I tend to prefer to ape, play super fast, and get myself killed. With Polaris Lance, every 4 precision hits readies an explosive round that also applies up to 60 scorch stacks to enemies, and this season when Radiant with the artifact mod Kindling Trigger, you should also be able to apply 45 scorch to an enemy instantly, which means in a single shot you can ignite, so you're easily able to clear ads very fast. And then on top of all that damage, helping you build your super, with Celestial Nighthawk, each precision enemy kill also grants between 1.5 and 4.5% super energy, and then getting a kill with Celestial Nighthawk also gives back 33% of your super. Also in general, dealing damage with exotic primaries also grants a ton of extra super energy, so you can generate supers like nuts, and that also doesn't account for chaining this between multiple people, generating orbs with all of their supers either. You're also radiant and can cause ignitions whenever, so anti-barriers and unstop champs are easily covered. Then you can just run something like a chill clip fusion to cover overloads, or just have a teammate do it as well. I also really like this build with a bipod reconstruction rocket. You can use that in combination with Wolfpack rounds if somebody runs Gallahorn to help ad clear really quickly. Overall, I think this is one of the best builds this season, if not the single best build for GMs. It makes them super easy, and they're really fun to run when you're one-shotting champions and chunking bosses' health bars. Okay guys, hopping straight into the build, I'm just going to sprint through the weapons because I already covered them. Obviously, Polaris Lance is our exotic. It's our main primary ad clearing weapon. With this, any precision shot is going to immediately be refunded directly into our magazine. And then after 4 of those precision shots, it's going to then load another round as our next shot, which is an explosive round. That explosive round on its own does damage and deals AoE, but it then also is going to be applying 40 scorch stacks at base, which gets scaled up to 60 scorch stacks with Ember of Ashes, which we already have on the build, which is going to feed into how we're causing ignitions, dealing even more damage than that base explosion does. And then on top of that, we also have Dragonfly with the Catalyst. So if you do have the Catalyst done, it's kind of nice. You can kill like red bars, for example, and cause a nice little AoE explosion if that's something you want. I just mentioned it, but obviously for my heavy, I've been running Apex Predator with Recon and Bipod. You could also do Crux Termination, especially if it's like Arc Surges and stuff like that in the GM. This is really good. You tend not to need a super hard hitting rocket, especially if you're using it to ad clear with Wolfpack rounds. So having more ammo, in my opinion, is preferable than having harder hitting rockets. And then in the kinetic slots, I like Riptide with Chill Clip to deal with overloads. And then if you don't have overloads, I've been running Supremacy. I like just using kinetic tremors here and there, especially as some like supplemental damage when dealing with champions. You obviously don't need nor want Genesis on this. I just had it on for speedruns and stuff like that, but that would be the weapons you want to run, in my opinion. And then after that, make sure you have Celestial Nighthawk on because that's the centerpiece for this build. Now hopping over into the Solar subclass setup, obviously you want Marksman Golden Gun. That's the bottom and center one. Otherwise, you're not going to get that precision damage. This will still turn your 3-shot Golden Gun into a single shot, which I think Celestial says it deals 625% increased damage. And then after that, we're running Gambler's Dodge. A lot of people always recommend for me to run Marksman Dodge. You don't really need it in my opinion. There's not too many times where having better DPS in a GM is really going to help you that much, but being able to get your knives back after you miss them or you don't get a kill with them is really important in my opinion. After that, we obviously have Knife Trick. This is also really good. With some of the artifact mods, you can shoot once to apply 45 Scorch, then throw a knife trick to apply another 60. So that's a really easy way to shoot, melee, and then get another ignition to go off. And then after that, your grenade's really not going to help the build too much, but having a healing grenade for survivability helps a ton. Aspect-wise, knock him down is up first. This is going to extend the duration of Marksman Golden Gun. It sounds kind of niche, like it wouldn't really help that much, but it's very useful, especially in a GM setting. When you pop, if you end up like early popping and you're expecting a teammate to stun, especially like an unstopped champion that has a ton of DR when it's not stunned, you can just kind of sit there and wait to use your Golden Gun until that stun goes through. So that extra duration actually helps a good bit. And then on top of that, whenever you're Radiant and you get charged melee final blows, that's going to instantly refund your charged melee. So you basically have infinite knives as long as you're Radiant getting kills with them. And then second to this is going to be on your mark. This obviously gives us 3 fragment slots for a total of 5, which is amazing. And then with this, precision final blows give us and nearby allies increased handling and reload speed, up to 3 total stacks, where we can also just dodge to get max stacks right away, which is super nice, especially because we're hitting a ton of precision hits and precision final blows. So we're almost always at that top tier reload. Lastly, when it comes to our fragments, first is Ember of Singeing. As we scorch targets, that gives us 300% additional base regen for our class ability for I think 3 seconds. We're always scorching stuff though, so it's pretty much endless, which means we get our dodge back way quicker. Ember of Torches is great. You can sub this out this season, honestly, but any other season, you're going to want to put it right back on the build. With this, when we get successful melee hits with our charged melee ability, that is what procs Radiant for ourself and nearby allies. Ember Empyrean is also amazing for the build. Once we get Radiant and once we have Restoration through our healing grenade, for example, as we're getting Solar Weapon and ability final blows, that just continually extends the duration of both those effects. Ashes is also needed on the build. This increases score stacks we apply by 50%. This is what lets things like Kindling Trigger, our knives, Polaris Lance explosions, and things like that trigger ignitions way more consistently. And then finally, we have Ember of Wonder. As we're getting rapid ignition final blows, we're genning more orbs of power. This is really good with the Orb of Power nerf this season specifically. If you wanted your ignitions to be better, you could go the Ember of Eruption route. I don't know how this will realistically help you depending on the size of like an enemy or add spawn location points. And then on top of that, Ember of Char does also seem like a really good idea. The only downside to this, in my opinion, is because we're using a mod like Kindling Trigger that is going to only apply a high amount of Scorch stacks to enemies if they're already at 0 Scorch. If we have ignitions going off constantly and Ember of Char is applying a baseline level of Scorch to those enemies, then Kindling Trigger isn't going to work as effective, and we can't do things like using the explosive round from Polaris to cause an ignition straight away. So in my opinion, Ember of Char can potentially mess up the build and the ignitions on demand, but it's your call. Finally, to end the build off, we do have all the mods. You can see them on screen right now, so you guys can pause the video, apply them yourself in game. You can use the dim link down below if you want, or we should have a Mobalytics link as well for more build info. There's a lot of mods, so I'm just going to be going over the important ones, at least in my opinion, that you should have on the build. So starting things off on our helmet, Harmonic Siphon or obviously Solar Siphon is going to be the best bet for you. You're getting a ton of primary weapon kills and even heavy weapon kills in the build in GMs, so that's more orbs of power for you and your team. You can also gen orbs with heavy-handed. You don't tend to get that many melee kills, but I still think this is really nice, especially if you're about to die. There's like a thrall near you, you can melee them, get things procced like Radiant, and then also pick the orb up to get some healing. After that, I also do really like Harmonic Loader. Even though we get a bunch of reload speed and handling, Harmonic Loader is still super nice to have when we don't have any of that stacked up. Chest piece wise, obviously the build's for GM, so make sure you absolutely have 3 copies of damage reduction mods on for the source of damage that you're taking or dying to the most often. Recuperation is also really nice. This is why I do like heavy-handed. We can make that orb on demand, pick that orb up, and we get 70 HP straight back. And then also on our boots, we do have Harmonic Scavenger. This is great, especially if you have like a Cenotaph Warlock, you're spamming rockets, maybe spamming rockets with Wolfpack rounds if you have somebody on Galley for ad clear, and then you can pick those bricks up and get more ammo straight back. Then finally, on our class item, Powerful Attraction is also amazing. You and your teammates are going to be making orbs like nuts. You're going to probably find in certain situations you are 1 HP, you don't have a healing nade, and you might be too far away from an orb of power to pick it up. So in that case, you can just dodge roll, pick all the orbs of power near you up instantly, and then for every orb you did collect, you get 70 HP straight back. We have 200 HP between our health and our shield pool in this game. So if there's 3 or more orbs, you're obviously getting full health and shields straight away. And then after that, we do also have Special Finisher so that we can use our armor charge stacks to generate special ammo for our team if we need that. The artifact mods are also super important for the build. Make sure you have all of the ones that I mentioned. Kindling Trigger makes it so that while we're radiant and we use a solar weapon against an unscorched combatant, it is then going to apply a baseline level of 30 scorch stacks or 45 scorch stacks for us because we're running Ember of Ashes. Flint Striker is great for maintaining radiant through rapid kills with solar weapons or rapid precision hits as well, so you don't actually need to really rely on your melee ability this season. Heart of the Flame is also great for the build. It reads that casting your solar super grants nearby allies radiant and increases the damage of your super ability for each nearby ally. We only have 2 nearby allies, so I think it's only like an 8 to maybe 12% increase in damage, which is pretty nice. And then even though it says it gives nearby allies radiant, I'm pretty sure just popping super also gives us radiant as well. So this is super nice because with Golden Gun, unlike a lot of other supers, we are getting a 25% increase in Golden Gun's damage while radiant. Also make sure you're not standing in a well of radiance. For some reason, that radiant effect doesn't count, so you want to be outside of the well. After that, Wish into Being is great for spawning extra orbs. Revitalizing Blast, especially against champs, is great for the weaken debuff at 15%. And I forgot to mention this in the beginning of the video for whatever reason, but we also are running a rocket, so you can just throw on overload rockets to deal with overloads that way. After that, the final thing we have is Rays of Precision. This is great for igniting enemies with solar precision final blows while we're radiant, so we can ignite through those kills, ignite through scorch stacks, and we also have Dragonfly as well. That is it for the build and for the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and also let me know what some of your other favorite GM builds are this season. As always, have a good one, guys. Peace.